And welcome once again to the Farms News Podcast Network. It's your contrarian agrarian, Sue Belcom.
And Annie Carlson.
And today we're going to sober up a little bit and talk about something near and dear to my heart, farm food safety. And we're talking about farm food safety today because of the recent multi-state outbreak investigation of, Annie, help me out. How do you say that?
Cyclosporiasis.
Whoa, which I know that I would never be able to spell on a spelling bee, but it's an intestinal infection and it's caused by some parasite of the same name.
Cyclospora.
And this outbreak seems to have been linked to salad mix served at Olive Garden and Red Lobster restaurants. And they purchased it from a producer in Mexico. And this is kind of a serious an issue because people are getting sick. But Annie, can you tell us a little bit about the
Cyclospora?
Yeah, that thing, and why or how it's spread and what this actually means to America.
So Cyclospora is a human parasite, and it is shed in stool, poop, for example, another word. So when you have contamination of produce with any parasite, bacteria, or virus that's found in stool, that's a fecal contamination. So this can be spread with not using proper hand washing, not using clean water for washing of hands, maybe using some recycled gray water, or using irrigation that's been contaminated with human feces.
Oh man, that sounds terrible. Can you tell me a little bit about what's been in the news stories?
So just pulling up an article from CBSnews.com, and they talked about that the salad is produced by Taylor Farms de Mexico, and it's sold at U.S. restaurants, and it's they've isolated it as the source of the outbreak in Iowa and Nebraska. And there are also a number of other states that are reporting outbreaks, but they haven't linked them directly to the Taylor Farms de Mexico lettuce.
So tell me, what's one of the reasons why it's so difficult to find the source of this contamination?
Well, the food travels so far and is handled by so many different areas that it's hard to narrow down where this is coming from. So when you walk into a Red Lobster restaurant or an Olive Garden restaurant, you look at their menu. It's a fairly extensive menu. So where did all of this food come from? What's the common thing that everybody who's sick ate? Was it a sauce? Was it a meat? Was it a drink? You know, what is the common link? So when you're studying epidemiology, you look for the common factor. Like, what would they all have in common? This time it happened to be the lettuce from the salad mix.
And that's because almost every meal is served with lettuce. In fact, don't they give lettuce away at Olive Gardens?
And at Red Lobster. So let's think about when we talk about the cheap food, and we are feeding people, and it costs less money to feed our families. And so it's basically a fallacy of cheap food. So when we're getting for free salad at Olive Garden and Red Lobster as examples, there are other restaurants who do this. What do you think those restaurants who are giving it away to their customers are willing to pay the farmer?
I don't know, but it doesn't sound like a job that I would want.
And what, in turn, are they willing to pay farm workers to harvest it if they're just going to turn around and give it away? So think about that in terms of if you're a very low-paid worker in Mexico, this is from a Mexico plant. If you're a very low-paid worker in Mexico, what's your motivation to make sure your hands are clean, to make sure that you're using the correct water source when you're washing your hands or when you're turning on the irrigation system? So when we talk about, food has to be affordable, what does cheap food come with as a cost? And I think the risk of food safety that we're finding out happened at the Taylor Farms of Mexico is something that isn't going to be an isolated incident when we continue to demand that food be produced cheaply. We're going to get what we pay for.
So then we're kind of like making the case for purchasing more foods locally, don't you think?
Absolutely. If you know the farmer who is growing your lettuce, you have an inherent trust in them. You know their name, you know their family. They're not just some faceless farm worker.
And are there some different laws, like in Mexico, regarding what they have to do, and as opposed to what you have to do in the United States when you're working on a farm? Is there a difference in chemicals they can use and stuff like that?
I'm sure there are differences in production practices. What's allowed in Mexico may or may not be allowed in the United States. I don't have any specific examples about that, but I would imagine there would be. We're two separate countries, two separate, departments of agriculture and things that we've tested and approved or not approved, and they've done the same.
Well, one of the things that we've done at Farms is work on farm food safety classes with the Entrepreneurial Center for Horticulture at Dakota College in Botno. Keith Knudsen, who is the farm business management teacher up there and also is a producer, has worked with farms now to do trainings on farm food safety because we would like to be able to tell people that yes, we understand where contamination could happen, and yes, we know how to wash our hands properly and all that other kinds of good stuff. But we also added it to the Farm Beginnings course that we're going to start in October. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Sue. We did add it as a crucial piece to a complete farmer training package. So not only do we go through production methods and techniques, we also go through business planning, and then we've added the farm food safety to just complete that offering, to make sure our farmers are completely trained both in production and in safe food handling techniques.
Right, and we'd like to be able to market locally to schools or to institutions, and we want people to feel safe about their food, even though for years and years and years, I've always trusted that the food that somebody grows and feeds to their own family is probably fairly safe for me to feed to my family.
And I think when we have that community-based food system, that trust does exist. The customer knows the farmer's name, they know where it's grown, they're welcome to visit the farm. When we have these giant mega corporations that have countries, their farms in other countries and are bringing it across the border, we lose that knowledge, we lose that trust, we lose that identification.
Not only that, but you're losing a lot of nutrition and flavor by trucking that stuff for so many weeks and so many long miles, which has always been one of the big deals about, it used to be you could get a meal within 150 miles of your farm, and now it's like 1,500 or more. So, what's going to happen next with this outbreak? I mean, has anybody died from this?
I haven't seen any reports of deaths yet. There is one lawsuit filed for damages. And like I said, there are other states that have had cyclospora outbreaks, but they're waiting to see if those are related to the same shipment of lettuce or if it was some other type of contamination in those instances.
So have they gotten this out of the supply chain yet? Is it safe to go to these restaurants and eat?
It is. Yep. It's out of the supply chain, and it was never, even though Taylor Farms produces a salad mix for retail distribution, that was never part of this recall, this outbreak. So it was simply the lettuce that was sent to Olive Garden and Red Lobster.
Boy, that's kind of frightening, isn't it?
It is. And how do you know if you have cyclosporiasis? Symptoms include nausea, diarrhea, abdominal pain, cramping, flu-like aches and pains, and a low-grade fever. And the thing that makes cyclosporiasis different from, another type of gastrointestinal upset is that the diarrhea can last nearly 2 months.
Holy cow, you could lose a lot of weight in 2 months like that.
You could be miserable for 2 months.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's what in the medical community we would call persistent.
Persistent. So
Yes.
2 months is persistent. So
Yes.
boy, I've been known to be persistent over time. Is there anything that they're going to do now to prevent this from happening again? Or is there anything they can do to prevent something like this happening?
Well, the FDA has come out and said they're going to take a look at importation of produce and maybe implement some new rules on importation. But I cringe when these come out because there's going to be blanket legislation that's going to affect everybody from the small farmers market grower to the giant, mega corporation that's shipping internationally, which we can't have a one size all solution. I mean, it's got to be something that everybody can implement and everybody can live with.
And you want my advice?
Always.
Grow your own, or go to your local farmer's market and find that fresh produce and stay at home once in a while and eat instead of going out all the time. Oh, did I really say that?
You did.
Oh, no. I trust my own cooking, so I'm kind of like prejudiced a little bit there. So,
As my husband says, we eat better at home than we do going out. So why to go out?
see, God, we're just like-minded there, too.
Yep.
So, hey, all of you people out there, some food for thought today. And you can find more podcasts on more issues, not so heavy all the time, and some recipes on our new website at farmsnews.com, our new YouTube channel at youtube.com, Farms News, and our very own iTunes channel, and that's Farms with 2 R's.
FARRMS.
Do you have an issue? Do you have a comment about this broadcast today? Or would you like to be a guest on our next podcast episode? Call 701-527-5169.
or 701-486-3569.
And you can find our email information on the podcast notes on the same website that you found this podcast on.
And don't forget to stop by often at farmsnews.com. We'll see you next week on the Farms News Podcast.
Bye now.